I own more planners than one person probably needs, but halfway through 2026, I'm getting much clearer on which ones are actually earning their place in my life. This is my mid-year planner lineup. What I'm actually using now, what each planner is for, and what I'm actually changing for the second half of the year. And I think that's the important part. This is not a planner collection video. This is really a systems check-in. Because for me, planners are not just about pretty pages or stationery. And I love the pages and I love the stationery. They are about decisions. They are about attention. They are about remembering what matters. They are about building a life that feels more intentional instead of just reacting to everything. So today I'm going to walk through the planners and notebooks I'm actually using right now, what job each one has, and why I've stopped expecting one planner to do everything. Because that has been one of the biggest lessons for me this year. Planning and documenting are not the same job. Tracking and reflecting are not the same job. Work planning and memory keeping are not the same job. And once I stopped trying to force one planner to hold my entire life, my system started to make a lot more sense. The first planner in my current system is my Sterling Ink A5 Complete. This is my life headquarters. This is where I can track appointments, projects, content ideas, and the general moving pieces of my life. I like having one central place that can hold the big picture and the daily reality. Because my life is not just one category. It's work, it's content, it's family, it's health, it's appointments, it's errands, it's ideas, it's all the things. And I need one place that can absorb that without making me feel like I need 5 different systems just to know what I'm doing this week. Now, this is the academic. I just got this a few weeks back. I bought it right when the pre-orders came out with a plan because I knew I would be using this. Previously, I was using A5 Cousin Avec. What I needed was dated dailies, vertical weeklies, and minimal layout. So the reason this planner is still working for me is because it gives me enough structure, but not so much structure that I feel trapped. I can use the monthly pages for overview. I can use the weekly pages to shape the week. I can use daily pages or note pages at the back for messy thinking, lists, plans, or whatever needs to come out of my head that day. And that matters because sometimes planning is not neat. Sometimes planning is just getting the noise out of your brain so you can see the next decision. So this is not just a pretty planner for me. This is the place I try to turn overwhelm into something I can actually work with. So for the second half of the year, I want this planner to stay focused on the real life I am building. Not the fantasy version, not the perfect version, the actual one. The next part of my system is what I think of as my momentum archive. For that, I'm using the A5 Creffective Weekly Notebook. And I love this book. This is where I want to track evidence of progress. Because when you're building something slowly, especially something like a YouTube channel, a business, a body of work, or a new identity, progress can feel invisible. You might be improving, but because it's gradual, your brain keeps saying nothing is happening. But something is happening. You recorded the video. You learned the editing shortcut. You got your first comment. You gained a subscriber. You figured out the thumbnail style. You learned how to light your office. You made the space more functional, and that matters. So this part of my system is not about managing appointments. It is about collecting proof. Proof that I showed up, proof that I'm learning, proof that I'm not starting from zero every day. For me, this is especially important because I can be very future focused. I can look at where I want to be and immediately feel behind. But when I track the evidence, I can see that I am building. Maybe not as fast as I want, maybe not as dramatically as I want, but I am building. And that is the purpose of this planner. It reminds me that progress is not always loud. Sometimes progress is evidence collecting quietly. The next piece of my system is my Hobonichi Avec. I had been using the A5 Avec for the first half of the year, and I've now switched into the Complete. However, what I will do with a part 2 book of the Avec is this is more about memory keeping, documenting and capturing the texture of life. What I love about the Avec being in 2 books, it's much thinner. So when I fill it with tickets, stickers, photos, it can bulk up. And if you'd like to see in a future video, I'm happy to share. So this can really become my memory book. This is more about the memory keeping, documenting, and capturing the texture of life. And I think this is where I've had to learn that planning and memory keeping are different things. A planner helps me move forward. A memory keeper helps me remember. And that's why these two exist independently now, because I was trying to make everything happen in one book. So a memory keeper helps me remember. And those are both valuable, but they are not the same job. So in this book, I can keep little moments, like I said, the photos, receipts, small reflections, trips, things I watched, things I learned, behind the scenes pieces of life. And this is less about productivity and more about presence, because I don't want to build a bigger life and then forget to actually notice it while it is happening. That sounds dramatic, but it is true. Sometimes we get so focused on goals and outcomes that we forget to document the ordinary days. And the ordinary days are where most of our life actually happens. I want this Hobonichi Avec cousin to be the place where I capture more of the life I am living, not just the life I am planning. The next planner or notebook in my system is my health planner. And for that, I'm using the B6 Sterling ink. This one matters because health affects everything else. Energy affects everything else. Sleep affects everything else. And stress affects everything else. And I know when I stop tracking my health completely, it becomes easier to ignore the patterns. Not in a punishing way, not in a perfectionist way, but in a practical way. If I'm not sleeping, I feel it. If I'm not moving, I feel it. If I'm sitting too long, I feel it. If I'm not drinking enough water, eating enough protein, I feel it. And if I'm trying to build a bigger life, I need the energy to live it. It can hold appointments, symptoms, habits, movement, sleep notes, meals, energy, or whatever feels useful in that season. The key for me is that this planner has to be supportive, not shaming. I do not need another place to feel like I failed. I need a place that helps me ask, what is my body trying to tell me? And what would support me today? What small thing would help me feel better this week? That is the job of this planner. The next part of my system is my Korean language notebook. But there's actually two. And I have a smaller one for vocabulary and a larger one for phrases. And I like this one that I can jot down grammar notes, practice, phrases, things I want to remember. And when I'm out and about on the go, I'll use my A6. So I like having these in a separate system because learning is something that requires its own space. And if I mix it up into my other planners, it disappears. And Korean is one of those things that connects to a bigger version of my life. It connects to future travel. It connects to curiosity. It connects to culture. It connects to the part of me that still wants to learn and explore and not just manage responsibilities. So even though this may look like a simple notebook system, it represents something bigger. It represents choosing to keep learning. And I think that matters. Now, in all honesty, that was a repurpose for this A6. And the same with the Day Free. So these were books that earlier in the year I thought I'd be using. I wasn't. And now they have a focused, dedicated purpose. The next piece is my everyday carry planner or notebook. This is the portable one. This one comes with me every day. It is not supposed to hold my whole life, and that's the point. I think one of the mistakes I've made before is expecting an everyday carry to do too much. So this is the Sterling Ink Full Year B6 Slim in the horizontal format. I think one of the mistakes I've made before is expecting an everyday carry to do too much. I wanted it to be small enough to come with me, but somehow powerful enough to hold my entire brain, my schedule, my goals, my notes, my errands, my project plans, and my emotional support system. That is too much pressure for one little book. So now I want my everyday carry to have a simpler job. It is for quick notes, errands, things I want to remember when I'm out, and a few important lists. Maybe a small amount of planning on the go, maybe lecture notes or brain dumps, and that's why all the blank pages come in handy. Maybe a small amount of planning on the go. But it is not the command center. The command center is the A5 complete. And this one is the satellite. And that distinction helps because I know what each planner is for, and I'm less likely to feel like the system is failing because just one book cannot do everything. So the final thing I want to mention is that I have experimented with quite a few planners this year. And some of them are not in this lineup anymore. That does not mean they are bad planners. It just means they were not the right job for this season. I think planner people sometimes feel guilty when a planner does not work out. But a planner not working out does not mean you failed. It means you learned something about your life, your brain, your needs, your schedule, or your system. And that is useful information. Sometimes a planner teaches you what you do not need. Sometimes it teaches you that you need more structure. Sometimes it teaches you that you need less structure. Sometimes it teaches you that you love the idea of the system more than you love using the system. And honestly, that is good to know. For the second half of 2026, I want my planner system to feel lighter, clearer, and more intentional. I do not want every book to compete with every other book. I want each one to have a job. Life headquarters, momentum archive, memory keeping, health, language learning, everyday carry, that's enough. And if something does not have a clear job, I probably do not need it active in my system right now. That doesn't mean I have to get rid of it immediately, but it does mean I can stop pretending it is part of my daily life when it isn't. So that is my mid-year planner lineup for 2026. The biggest lesson is planning and documenting are different jobs. Some planners help me move forward. Some planners help me remember. Some planners help me track progress. Some planners help me stay grounded. Some planners help me learn. And once I stopped expecting one planner to do everything, my entire system became much simpler.